You know, with the Ravens breakdowns and the Steve Bisciotti press conference next week and the long off season, we turn our eyes elsewhere. I am a Caps fan, been doing some Caps, been watching the Wizards before they went to Texas and got their bells rung. And, of course, the Terps are on our minds. And on Sunday afternoon, between the Ravens who didn't show up in Cincinnati and the Terps who didn't show up in the last 7 minutes in College Park, it was a rough start to the year. Don Marcus has been on both beats, the Ravens, and, of course, no one knows more about the Terps than he does at the Baltimore Sun. He has inked a book, 100 Things Maryland Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. And if there's 101, it's learn how to play the 1-3-1. Right, Don Marcus?
I would say so. I would say that just figure out how to draw up a couple of plays against it. And I know Mark has always talked about how he's run plays during games that they haven't practiced. And I thought that might have been a good time to do one of those.
Yeah, I mean, look, I chalked this up as freshmen, right? So I went to the Caps game on Tuesday night. They have the best player on the planet, this kid, Austin Matthews. They had a 4-2 lead late in the second period, and they're all young, and they were cocky, and you could see it in the way they were playing. And I think the same thing about young teams, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. It doesn't matter. I mean, there were a bunch of freshmen running around. They had a nice chunky lead. I thought there's no way they could lose the basketball game, and then they just couldn't shoot. I mean, and they didn't handle the defensive shift well, but they didn't get good looks. They didn't get good shots. And in the end, you're waiting for Melo to hit a shot that Melo never hit this time around, right?
Well, yeah, and I think you hit a lot of good points. I think, number one, I think people can't underestimate how a lot of these kids, as good as they are, as mature as they are still pretty young in the college game. And as Mark said afterward, this is the first time that they had gone through something like this, where they had come back, and all they knew about this was coming back and making these successful comebacks. And in this case, people thought, maybe they thought they were on their way to a blowout. And all of a sudden, the shots started missing. And I've always been a true believer in shooting being continuous, both good and bad. And when teams are hitting shots, everybody makes them. And when teams are missing shots, you don't want to be the next guy to miss. So when you shoot it, you're thinking about too many things. So I think that played into it. It looked like a lot of guys were almost running away from shots, shooting them when they didn't want to, passing when they shot, and that's what happened at the end of the game.
He is Don Marcus. You can follow his journey out at the Baltimore Sun and SportsProf56 out on Twitter, as well as his book on 100 Things Maryland Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. I guess let's start from the top here. If there's any criticism of Turgeon amongst the fan base out on the message boards and elsewhere, it's, good recruiter, not the greatest strategist or in-game manager. I think it's very easy to sort of, throw it on to the coaching and the lack of preparedness. I mean, and to some degree, Turgeon took that on himself. I do think that there's, another part of this where some of these kids, this is a growing process, and they're going to blow one that they should win. This was the one, and let's see how they react against Michigan, against Indiana, what will be the biggest game of the year, at least thus far, and you hope it's not the biggest game of the year, but it's certainly the one when the schedule came out that you circle it on Tuesday night. How this team's going to react on the road the next couple of weeks on these cold trips that you're embarking with them. This isn't an easy thing to do, to get on these airplanes and go out to Iowa and Minnesota and try to win basketball games when it's 5 degrees.
Yeah, no, and the weather aside, again, this is going to be a new experience for these guys because they haven't played a road game. The only road game they've really played was at Georgetown, and by the end of the game, the Maryland fans who were there, and there were quite a few, were a lot louder than the Georgetown fans. So they really haven't played in a hostile environment. I don't know what kind of environment it'll be at Michigan because Michigan has not drawn a lot of fans the last couple of years. They did last year when Maryland played there, but I think it was more because Maryland was so highly ranked. And, so I think that they may skirt a very tough home court on Saturday. Students are not there. The atmosphere at Xfinity next Tuesday should be electric, but there's a good chance that you're going to have you could have 2 1-2 Big Ten teams playing with some desperation in that game as opposed to what we thought might be possible when you looked at the early schedule. Nobody thought that Indiana would be 0-2 at this point. They play Illinois at home, I think, between now and when they face Maryland. And I think when you looked at Maryland's schedule, you figured even with this young team, you didn't think Nebraska was going to be as improved as they seem to be, but we'll see if that holds up. You figured they'd be at worst 2-1. So we'll see. I think Saturday is a very big game for Maryland in terms of sort of getting the taste out of their mouths of what happened on Sunday and proving that they can win on the road.
The Indiana game's fascinating just because they're probably not the better side, right? But they're at home, and there's got to be some desperation sinking into Indiana's game because they're a loss away from not even being in the top 25 after 2 weeks ago thinking, well, we'll be number one if we keep winning a couple of games here. And certainly the stumbles, and I tell you what, feather in the cap for Nebraska for what they pulled off last week, right?
Oh no, definitely, and it was unexpected given the they were playing. They lost to, I think they lost to Gardner Webb during the preseason. They had played a couple of good games against quality teams, but they were 7-6 coming into Maryland. They were 6-6 going into Indiana, and Indiana is as tough an environment. Whatever time of year, students, not students, it doesn't matter because the place is packed. And, for them to do what they did in that game, come out, build a nice lead, withstand a pretty good run by Indiana and then win. And sort of the same thing against Maryland. And they built a nice lead, withstood an unbelievable run by Maryland, was down 13, and they ended up, scoring the last 14 points of the game. So, a lot of credit goes to Tim Miles and what they've done. But I think it's just going to be a crazy year in the Big Ten. I think the teams that we thought were going to be really good have issues. The teams we thought were going to be really bad are better than expected. So that leaves a lot of average to slightly above average teams. And that makes for a lot of upset for a lot of scores that you just shake your head.
Yeah, I know back in the lefty era of the ACC, it was kind of like that. Like on any given night, there were 6 really good teams, and anybody could beat anybody on any night. It felt very even-Steven for a long period of time, and then it got lopsided where Duke and North Carolina every year were top 10 teams, and everybody else was just trying to get into the top 25. Seeing Wisconsin now, seeing Purdue now, I'll buy in that they're good basketball teams, but I'm not going to buy in that they're going to be 1 seeds or 2 seeds in the tournament in March. And for that, I would say these teams are even, and every game, every night's going to be interesting. I mean, maybe Rutgers aside, maybe Penn State aside, but on any other night here during the schedule, I see these as being 5-point games with 5 minutes left to go most nights, right?
No, I totally agree. I think that I think if you look at Wisconsin now, I mean, they're undefeated in the league. They had a really nice win against Indiana last night, at Indiana. But I don't think they're as good as the team 2 years ago when they had a couple of guys who are playing in the NBA right now, and some young guys who are now the solid players on this team. So I think there's Purdue. I thought Purdue was going to be would be a different team. But when they lost at home to Minnesota, the way they lost, getting killed at the beginning of the game, coming back, taking the lead, and then losing at the end, it spoke to the fact that there are a lot of deficiencies on a lot of these teams, Maryland included. And I think that you're going to just see a lot of up and down teams throughout the year, and it's going to be very interesting. The Big Ten tournament is in D.C. this year, and there's going to be a lot at stake for a lot of teams in that tournament.
Don Marcus joining us here, longtime writer for the Baltimore Sun and one of my colleagues back in the day. That's how long he's been there. I've been gone 25 years, and he was there when I left. You can follow him at SportsProf56 out on Twitter, as well as his book that just came out a couple weeks ago, 100 Things Maryland Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. You can go find that out on Amazon as well. And, Don, I wanted to talk to you about this because I'm going to the Indiana game next week. I think I'm going to make the Rutgers game, and I think at the end there's like one game, Michigan State, I think, on March 5th, that I'm going to make because I'm going to be gone most of the month of February chasing Bruce Springsteen around the planet with my wife. I love the environment down there. I love that it's kind of come back a little bit. I'm really happy with this Big Ten thing. And I was never a bleeding heart for the ACC, and I'm not a part of the Red Sweater Club and, I have an affinity for Cole Fieldhouse and the memories there. And, I understand buildings and money, and the place has been there 15 years now. But these other gyms that you're going into, you've experienced this. Last year, I made it to Purdue. I think we sat together at that game, and I think I turned to you and said, I've been doing this 32 years now, Don, and, it's very unusual when I find myself in a place where I'm like, well, why didn't I do this before? And I know I talked to you about Nebraska, and you said you should go see a basketball game in Lincoln. Are any of these gyms this year? Because it's kind of weird. Maryland's not going to Indiana this year, right? It's kind of like the ACC at the end. You don't get to go to Duke and North Carolina every year. They're not going to Purdue this year. So you got to take advantage of some of these spots. A couple of these places maybe you still haven't seen a game in?
I know. I think I've been in every one now, but it is strange. I do feel. I'm sure Maryland doesn't mind the fact that they're not going back to Indiana, Purdue, and
Minnesota,
Michigan State this year. But I miss the fact that I'm not going back there because they're probably three of my favorite places. Oh, Mackey, we talked about it. I just think it's a great environment. They're all. That's the thing about Big Ten in basketball and in football, not necessarily across the board, but in basketball. I think with the exception of Rutgers and Penn State, really every place is going to be packed. Every place is going to be whatever. Doesn't matter. 2 years ago, I was in Illinois. It was the wind chill factor was minus 30, and the place was packed. So
I can't think it's going to be balmy in Minnesota when you get there on the 28th of the month either, right?
No, there are no places. There are no places that are even close to balmy. That was the thing I loved about the ACC. I could always pack my golf clubs for at least one or two trips a year, and sometimes get away with maybe even more. And the closest I get to a golf course in the Big Ten is the Jack Nicklaus Museum at Ohio State.
Yeah, well, you can get an indoor range somewhere. Don Marcus joining us here, Sports Prof 56. Yeah, the Minnesota trip, I saw a game out at the barn the day before I met Brian Billick. The day before that Dirty Birds championship game, I went over there and saw Iowa play Minnesota, and I would still say that ranks right up there. I mean, that's a great, great place to go see a basketball game. And, of course, Maryland got their ass kicked there last year by an awful team, right? Kind of a one-off weird thing that we talk about in the Big Ten that's going to happen. It's kind of shocking that it's happened to Indiana so often here the first week, but we'll see how it turns out. Terps at Michigan on Saturday and to Indiana at home on Tuesday, and then on the road, Illinois, Iowa, and other places. Tell me about your book a little bit. And, I understand that they're honoring Lefty, correct, the Ohio State game on the 11th. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're going to unfurl a banner for him to hang in the rafters, which I think is both overdue and well deserved. And I think it's hopefully this will lead to more discussion about Lefty going to the Hall of Fame. There was a great piece by Joe Posnanski, who spent some time with Lefty recently.
I'm having Joe on the show this week. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. He's also a Springsteen guy.
He really made it. He made his own case in his own way for Lefty being in the Hall of Fame, and so I'm hoping that's sort of the starting point to a lot of discussion about why Lefty should be in the Hall of Fame, and then maybe he'll get in this year. But no, that's a great thing. I wrote in the book a lot about Lefty and about the fact of why he should be in the Hall of Fame, stating his case for the Hall of Fame, so
what's the process for that, Don? I don't know the process. I mean, who votes on that? And I mean, I know it's in Springfield. I mean, I know about it.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. It's pretty secretive and not a lot of accountability. I know John Feinstein took made a really good case about how ridiculous the process was, and sort of called them out in the Washington Post, which I thought was a really good job. Really good, interesting story by John. So, I think that's part of the problem. I think that it's also the fact that the Naismith Hall of Fame is basically funded by the NBA, so the college guys sort of get short shrift in this stuff. And I think that's changed over the years. Lefty's in the College Hall of Fame, but everybody thinks of it being the Hall of Fame up in Springfield, and so that's where he should be, and that's where that's why I want to hear an acceptance speech, and I don't want it to be done. He turned 85 on Christmas Day. I don't want it 5 years from now to write about it, and Lefty not be here for whatever reason, or not be able to attend. So I hope they get it done. They should get it done, and hopefully there's enough support now. I mean, the people that Joe Posnancy quoted in his story are who's who of college basketball. Mike Krzyzewski and Lute Olson and other people, and even pro basketball. So I hope it's going to get done this year.
Don Marcus joining us here. The book is 100 Things Maryland Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. You can find that out on Amazon. If you buy it on the Give a Spit app, you're helping our friends at There Goes My Hero as well as Don. And Don will be chasing the Terps run. How's this going to turn out, Don? They're going to be at a tournament, right? I mean, you get that vibe that I don't think they're going to lose 4 out of 5 here on the road or whatever. I think highly of them, having watched them, and certainly seeing the coming out party for Herter, on Sunday. I like what I'm seeing from the young players. Not every minute, not all the time, and certainly I can't excuse what happened on Sunday, but I don't think it's going to happen again.
Well, I don't know if it'll not happen again. I don't think you'll see it happen on a regular basis. I think those kids are pretty resilient. I think the freshmen are going to, they've now played 15 games, and you can see them all getting better. I mean, Herter, we were waiting for Herter to show the things he showed up in Shenendahowa High School. Say that 3 times. And
can't say that on the radio. I have an FCC license.
And in terms of his long range shooting, his just knockdown 3-point shooting, and the thing that was even more impressive about that game is not only did he have 26 points, he also had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. So
he was just involved in every way. He was the best player on the court.
That's why he's been on the court as much as he has, even when he's not been scoring, is because he's such a good, well-rounded player. Cowan has been probably the most consistent of the 3, and Justin Jackson certainly has probably been the most up and down in terms of having some really good nights and other nights when he's sort of not very visible. So I think that he probably has the biggest room to grow as the season goes on. And then you have Melo, and Melo had not a great game against Nebraska, and I think that he has proven this year that he's back to, if not being the Melo he was 2 years ago, being one of the best college basketball players in the country, and I think he will have a resolve on Saturday, because he had one of his worst games there last year at Michigan. And I think that's going to be in his mind going into that game, that he wants to have a good game there this time. So no, I think they're a tournament team. I have no idea what the seeding is, because I don't think anybody can predict. 2 weeks ago, as you said, Indiana was on the verge of being a top 3 team, or they were a top 3 team and maybe a number 1 seed. And now they're out of the top 25 after this week, and then number 6 seed. So who knows where the seedings are going to go? And there's a lot, a long season, and a lot of cold places for Maryland to travel. And but once they get in the gym, it's all it's 72 degrees or whatever they keep the gyms at. So I don't think weather is a factor, at least in basketball.
Don, I've been waiting for DeMonte Dodd to come along, right, and be more of a contributor. I know the injury with him and Tchaikovsky and more of the smaller lineup that, sort of plays well with Cowan and Trimble. For me, it certainly played well against Illinois last week. But the notion that Dodd's ever going to be more than what he is, I think we've seen this over 30 years. I think he's a better player than he was, but he's just not going to warrant being on the court 30 minutes a game. He's just not.
No. Yeah, that's not who DeMonte is, and given the fact that he now has guys who can, like a Tchaikovsky once he gets back, even Bender. LG Gill has not shown a whole lot yet. I'm not quite sure when that contribution is going to be on a regular basis. But, DeMonte, actually, I thought DeMonte played really hard the other day, and he was productive. In a short 13 minutes, I think he had 6 points, 4 rebounds, and a block, which not great, but certainly productive. Certainly, he is a factor around the rim. You wish he was a little different, a little more polished, but that's not who he is. And he's a senior, and it's not going to be that. I don't think he'll get much better. But
I was waiting on it, but it's not coming at that level.
I think
right?
if you can get him to score a few points, if you can get him to get a few rebounds and block a couple shots, and just add to whatever total you want from the big men collection, that's fine. If he's the main guy you're counting on for inside scoring, you're in trouble. So, but he's a hardworking kid. He's come a long way from where he was in high school on the Eastern Shore, and I know Mark really loves him, and I think that I just saw maybe I'm going to have to talk to him this afternoon, shortly, and maybe that sitting out those 5 games, because I did see a different kind of energy level from him the other day. He really played hard, maybe harder than I've seen him play, and maybe he came to realize that's what he's got to do out there.
We are in the midst of a fun season. Don Marcus covers everything Maryland basketball out at Sports Prof 56, as well as at the Baltimore Sun at BaltimoreSun.com. The book is 100 Things Maryland Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. You can also pick that up out on Amazon with the foreword by Gary Williams. We'll see you on Tuesday night down there. Should be a real big one down at College Park. I'm looking forward to seeing the student wall, as well as you and my other media pals on Tuesday night for Indiana. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Take care. And is Harbaugh coming?
Well, of course Harbaugh's going to be there, right? How can he not be there? I bet Bisciotti will be there, too.
Take care.
See you on Tuesday. Don Marcus from the Baltimore Sun joining us here, Sports Prof 56 as well. And you can... get a little journalism involved there as well. Love having Don on the program, talking some Turtles with us as well. Caps, Wizards, I've been doing a little bit of that this week, as well as the Ravens. We have the Bisciotti press conference next Tuesday, and the aforementioned Harbaugh brother-in-law visit by the Indiana Hoosiers on Tuesday. I'll be watching all things football this weekend in the NFL, all the wild card games. I might even be cranking up some Led Zeppelin before the weekend's over, because what else are you going to do when you're not playing and you're rooting for the Miami Dolphins on a Sunday afternoon? Pathetic. That's all I can say. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And anything you miss here in the new year, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Big thanks to buyatoyota.com on that. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. Last, never least, breaking news. If Dan Duquette does something, if the Ravens have some weird thing happen, hire a quarterback coach, whatever happens first on the WNST tech service. That's why it's breaking news. There's never spam. About 10,000 of you on it. It's pretty good. It's free. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5, the SSV on WNST. And no doubt complaining even more about the Ravens' 8-8 finish, because that's what we do around here at WNST.net. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.